Looks like we're live. Although you're gonna need to use your phone to see any comments that people might have. Wonder how many people will be here on a holiday weekend.
I don't know. Probably all busy quilting.
That's what I would be doing.
Well, we get to do a Facebook Live instead.
Exactly. I was talking with a friend earlier today, and he said 3-day weekends like this, he likes to just stay home and work on projects because gas stations, mini marts, the woods, the lake, basically like everywhere that you could go and do something on a holiday weekend is crammed with people.
That is true.
Not that he doesn't like people, but when...
Yeah, I prefer to vacation when no one else is vacationing, so yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Or a couple minutes in, so we can probably go ahead and actually get started with the
We're not a
content.
couple minutes in, it only feels like a couple minutes.
Okay, well, we're a couple minutes past 4.
Why don't you pull out your phone, we'll see how many people are on. So I've got my phone over there on a stand, so hopefully it's doing its little thing, but I can't really see it, other than the lens. Make sure I did it right. Should be on the page. You know, everybody thinks that Andrew and Michelle have all the tech stuff figured out, and it does kind of feel that way sometimes. But every now and again, you go to do something on your phone that you normally use the computer for, or you're using a different device or something, and everything lays out totally different, and you go hunting around, where's that button? I know there's a control for this.
It says we got 43 people at this point, so
Ah,
we can probably go ahead and get started with that.
wait, if you wait a little bit longer, I can board 50 people all at once.
Up to 47. So.
Okay,
Oh, 51. Okay, we're good to go.
all right, cool.
So we're here today to show you a couple of cool new products that we've got. We've got one of them sitting here on the table right in front of us, and that is the new Gammill Professional Bobbin Winder. This is a great new bobbin winder. Hopefully you've seen the announcement that we already did about it. That has some information, but we're going to go into a little bit more detail here today and answer any questions that you guys have. So
Now, before we go much farther, please get on there and make a comment if you could not hear what Michelle was saying, because I'm trying something different this time. I've got a little microphone in my ear, and because it's halfway between her and me, I thought it might help, because I know sometimes on these live videos, a really common comment that people will put is that, I can't hear. And obviously, you try turning up the volume on your phone as far as you can, but would somebody please put a comment in there about...
well, they say you sound good, but you keep talking, so they can't tell whether I'm talking or not. So,
Yeah, but that's how I roll. So on this, oh dang it, could you take a look real quick and see if, I had some more empty bobbins. I think there's one on that
Yep.
shelf right there. I was gonna wind up a bobbin. This is, this is a game changer. I mean, I don't know, people have been winding bobbins for something like 150 years. I mean, sewing machines have been around for a long time, and for pretty much that long, people have been winding bobbins. And,
well, we've been listening to feedback from you guys about what you like and don't like about the bobbin winder that we have had, and some of those things. So there are a few things that are some improvements on this bobbin winder that we didn't have on the previous bobbin winder based on feedback from our customers. One of them is the length of the cord. See, it comes with this lovely 10-foot long cord. You have plenty of cord to reach to the nearest outlet. So,
but I don't need 10 feet of cord on mine because I put it right behind the Statler monitor. But if you needed 10 feet of cord, that would be enough. You could put it behind your Statler monitor and run the cord under the table all the way back to the middle of the table where the controller is.
yeah.
You never complain about having too much cord. It's only when you don't have enough.
So a couple more of the things that on this bobbin winder that came from feedback from customers. Another one is just the volume. The old bobbin winder was relatively loud. This one is very quiet. Go ahead and turn it on here.
So it's got 2 speeds, slow and fast. It's on. But it has a full bobbin.
So that's how loud that bobbin winder is. I don't know if you can hear it or not. We can barely hear it here in the studio.
It's not hard to talk over it though. What's really interesting to me is that with the design of this bobbin winder, the motor is so quiet that the main thing you hear is actually the sound of the thread going through the thread guides and the tension. I know we're not winding a bobbin right now, but that motor is so stinking quiet and completely smooth. The thing is, it's a direct drive. I mean, the motor, it's a pretty good sized motor back there, and it just spins the bobbin. So there's none of these in between parts like a rubber O-ring or the little bearing thing that has to be oiled. It's simple.
More customer feedback. This does not require oiling, doesn't require new O-rings. It's basically maintenance free, other than you might occasionally have to clean a little lint out from between the tension discs if you use a linty thread. But other than that, this machine should be maintenance free. Another feedback that we got from our customers was they really wished that the old bobbin winder would have shut off when it finished winding a bobbin. So on the old one, it stopped filling, but the motor kept running. On this one, it actually stops completely when the bobbin is full. And that is adjustable. You can adjust how full you want the bobbin, and you can also use different size bobbins other than just the Gammill bobbins, as long as they have the same size center hole to go on the post. So if you have a domestic sewing machine, you might be able to use this for some of those depending on the center hole size of the bobbins that it uses.
Yeah, if you had a situation where briefly or temporarily you needed to wind a different bobbin on this machine, you could actually just hit the start button and wind it, and you wouldn't even need to adjust the stopper, because as that bobbin fills up, you just stand there and watch it and hit the stop button when you want to stop it. Of course, if you wanted to buy a second winder and have one for your Gammill and one for your embroidery machine, then you would adjust this little stopper right here. But it's pretty cool. Do you want to check the comments real quick and make sure people can still hear us? I'm going to go ahead and...
They say they can.
Okay, good.
So, another thing that this bobbin winder has that the other one didn't have is a thread cutter. So there's a slot right here, and there's a razor blade down in there, hidden in where you can't get your fingers on, so you can't cut yourself. But it's got a nice little slot that the thread will go down through easily, so you can cut the thread to take your bobbin off of the winder really easily.
You know, everybody knows that at Gammill we take a lot of time in the products that we design, develop, and build. And obviously, that's how you build the best stuff in the world. But I think it's actually kind of humorous how much time and energy went into designing the thread cutter. Just a little detail like that. But the thread cutter really matters. I mean, if you have a thread cutter built in on your sewing machine, and it worked when it was new and then quit working a year in, that's not a very cool feature, not anymore. So we designed it actually in such a way that when the blade gets dull, which any knife gets dull, it's a really simple adjustment to expose a new part on the razor blade. You could probably never change the blade in your entire lifetime, because there's enough space on that blade to probably get a sharp blade like, 10 or 20 times easily.
At least, yeah.
Yeah, at least. So like it's as close to maintenance free as we can figure out. Let's wind a bobbin from start to finish. So basically I just, it's threaded through the tension, and you could adjust the tension on the wind, but it comes pre-adjusted
so
for you.
You can adjust the tension. It comes pre-adjusted for a standard quilting type thread. Your omnis, your signatures, your sew fines, things like that should wind just fine right out of the box. But you do have that adjustment if you want to tweak it a little bit. You can do that. So if we're going to wind a bobbin, Andrew put the bobbin on there.
So there's 2 speeds, normal and slow, marked as plus and minus, but I always wind on plus.
So pretty much you're going to use the plus all the time. If you're using a really delicate thread, you might want to slow it down a little bit and go to the slower speed. But the higher speed is going to work for the vast majority of
Yeah.
threads and bobbins.
I think the rule of thumb there, I mean, the easy way is, if you know you're gonna be slowing down your machine and not running at the normal stitching speed because this thread is a real pain to use, if you're gonna slow down to stitch with it, you should slow down to wind it as well. I mean, that's the easy rule of thumb there.
So just like winding a regular bobbin with the Gammill bobbins that have holes in them, take the thread and go from the inside of the bobbin out to one of the holes, put the bobbin on the post, hold that thread tight, and just hit the start button.
You did it wrong.
I did it wrong.
It's
See?
because you're sitting on the wrong side. So when you hold the thread, you need to hold it straight out from the bobbin, otherwise it'll just break it right away. So it's not designed to be operated from the rear.
Okay, so now I'm holding it at 90 degree out from the bobbin, hit that start button.
And the thing that's interesting about it, I mean, we can still hold a conversation over the winder.
Yeah, you can tell it gets a little bit louder, and most of what you're hearing is the thread noise.
Right, the thread is actually making more than half of the noise because it was super quiet before when it was just the motor running. But then when you have the sound of the thread rushing through the tension discs and the thread guides, it adds a little bit more. You kind of can't get away from that.
So it stops automatically when the bobbin gets full.
And I love that because you can start the bobbin and then walk to some other place in your studio and do some other project. And when you're ready, come back for it, the bobbin's waiting for you.
Come back down through that cutter, and there you got a nice, perfectly wound bobbin.
Do we have any questions?
I was gonna just check, I think somebody had asked what the price was, I saw that one fly by. But you could tell them that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this bobbin winder is $349. You can get it from any Gammill dealer. It's a little bit tempting when you look at something like this and you look at the other bobbin winders that are also $349. It's like, well, shoot, with as much better as this one is, it should be $500. But we try to do everything at the very best and yet keep it affordable for our customers. So it's just $349.
And one question that I'd seen come up on some Facebook posts was whether or not you could trade in your old bobbin winder on the new bobbin winder. If you're interested in that, check with your dealer. They might have somebody else who's looking to get a standalone bobbin winder, but maybe doesn't have enough money, to buy the new one. So there might be an opportunity for you to trade in your bobbin winder and help somebody else out who needs a more economical option.
Yeah, I've sold a lot of bobbin winders over the years because when I used to do service calls in the home I did, 500 a year or something of in-home service calls, and a lot of times people had a bobbin winder that was 10, 15 years old and really wore out, and you cannot get good quilting if you don't have a good bobbin winder. And so a lot of times I would check over their Gammill and the machine had little to nothing wrong with it, but their problems were because the bobbin winder was worn out. So I sold a lot of bobbin winders. I usually kept 3 or 4 of them on the truck with me so that because I'm too cheap to want to pay $15 in shipping when I can have it in the truck. So I think if your bobbin winder is under 5 years old, that could be a wonderful gift for somebody or maybe a trade-in, like Michelle said. If it's older than that, if it's showing wear and tear, if it's like a 10-year-old bobbin winder, it's kind of time. Those old bobbin winders were built well, but they didn't last forever. That's my personal opinion. But I've replaced a lot of bobbin winders. Couple other things. It doesn't matter to most people, but it does have it's built with world voltage. A real annoying thing for people who live in 240 volt countries is that everything they get from America needs a transformer to be able to use it. Well, this is an American made bobbin winder, but we built it for the world. So the people that get it in other countries, they'll use a different power cord from the bobbin winder to the wall and no adapter required, which I think is pretty cool. A lot of times those transformers would cost as much as the thing you were plugging in. extra cost of living somewhere else.
Well, let's go ahead and show them the other cool new thing that we have for them today. So,
Where'd you put them?
why don't you go ahead and walk over to the machine,
Okay.
and we'll start there.
Okay. So, here, let me move the, you gonna move it for me? Okay. Well, yesterday I got to upgrade my Statler, and I actually made a video doing it, but it hasn't been edited yet. I'll release it here as soon as it's ready to go. It's an upgrade I've been wanting to do for a long time because our educators and beta testers have been using this upgrade for quite a long time and telling me how much they love it. And it was about time for me to get it myself. So what we have here is the soft touch handle switches. The soft touch handle switches, I've got a 1 minute long video that just went up on YouTube, and it's probably on the Facebook page and on the website now. But the soft touch switches work on all Statler machines, almost all Plus machines, all of the Vision machines, some of the Vision 2s it does not fit on, and a few of the Pluses. And anyway, there's some information on the video on which machines it fits. The easy way is most Gammills, the soft touch switches will fit. And these bad boys are great. They are, I'm gonna go ahead and set my point of origin because we just turned this one on. And I'm gonna pull the thread out because I don't wanna tangle it up. And the soft touch switches don't have to be pushed down as far as the older standard handle switches needed to be. And they are way easier to push. And I remember I called one of our educators who had been using them on her machine for a long time, and she just raved about how many more quilts she was able to do and how much less tired she was at the end of the day just from the change in the handle switches. So, why did you untangle my thread?
Because.
Okay. Did you have something you wanted to show on them? Okay. Can you clear that window? I don't know that it's going to be in the way, but I forgot about it. Xbox. So they're really easy to install. I don't have the installation video up yet, but when I was here installing these on my machine, I videoed that process. So once I get that edited, it's going to be available to you guys so that you can kind of follow along and know how it works. It's basically, if you've ever replaced the switches on your machine, it's kind of like that. You're replacing the switches. It looks a little bit different because you're replacing the switch with the foam handle grip.
Let's go ahead and go back over and show them what they look like when they receive the switches for replacement.
Okay, sure. Go back to the table. Do you want to put it in a little closer, or it doesn't really matter? So when you get your soft touch switches, you're going to get 4 of them. There'll be 2 for the front of the machine and 2 for the back. And they're super easy to install, but you're going to get the switch and it's going to include the foam handle grip. And
So you get the new foam along with the switches as well.
Yeah. And this right here at the bottom, you've got the wires, but then you also have a protective tube for the wires. So after anybody who's replaced switches, which is just about everybody that has Gammill, these little things, they don't last forever. They wear out because we push them so much. And so, you know what it's like. You pull the wire off, put the new switch on. This is basically the same little connector right here, except after you do the connection, you're going to take and push the wires up inside this protective tube here. So that's pretty much
that just keeps them from getting pinched or things like that.
Yeah, we tried to make it absolutely foolproof.
Well, you mentioned the switches and these switches and pushing them lots of times. Eventually they break, and some on these switches, they were the great thing in the day when the machine was originally designed, but they do wear out. And
they're so much stiffer. I mean,
even
when you
just
compare them side by side.
vibration, and eventually just vibration. The ones you don't even use of these will eventually break on the inside. But yes, like Andrew was saying, you can see the difference in how much pressure it takes.
When you hold them and you test them side by side, it's a really big difference. I sometimes would move people's machines, or bring one in for service and then take it back to the house, or whatever I was doing with transporting a machine. And it's crazy how often these handle switches would break in the transport. And I was pretty sure I didn't bang it or bump it into anything, but they just, they were state of the art at the time, and of course they're still available. But these are so much better. I don't think I put it in the video, but there's a machine that we have here that tests the switches. We wanted to make sure that they would have the longevity that people expect out of a Gammill product. And so we've got these really cool machines that run 24 hours a day, and they've got a little digital counter on them, and they basically all day long they push the button and it counts and it verifies that the switch worked properly and how many cycles and all that stuff. Those little machines are really cool, and they're designed so that you can figure out how long it's going to take for a switch to break. And we actually wore out 3 of those tester machines, and we still never managed to wear a switch out. So we can't actually tell you how long they're going to last.
So far, our testing machines are up to about 100 years of standard quilting use. So these switches should be, you replace them once, and you shouldn't have to replace switches on your machine again. Which is another great thing for those of you who've had machines for a while. You know that when these switches go out, a lot of times you get weird mystery problems, and you don't know what's going on with your machine. It's not working, but it's doing really, really weird
Sometimes
things.
you think your computer's gone out on the machine, or it's throwing up error messages randomly, or taking stitches when it's not supposed to, or there are so many things that can be a symptom of a bad handle switch, that by taking that off the table as far as something that could be wrong, we expect to have a lot fewer people having these kind of mystery problems.
Yeah, so in addition to being a nicer switch, they will also eliminate some of the frustration you have when your switches do go out and you don't know what's wrong with your machine. That won't be happening in the future once you get these switches.
I can't tell you how many times people posted some kind of problem on Facebook, and I would say, try replacing all of your handle switches. Not because I was positive that was the problem, but because they're cheap, they break a lot, and it could have caused a problem, and so it'll be nice to, once a person has these on their machines, you never have to wonder if it's the switch, because it's not.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure the question has either come up already or will come up shortly. What's the price on these switches?
$500, right?
No.
I actually don't know.
These switches are $79 for the set of 4. So that's the switches, includes the new foam handle grips. They are something that you can install yourself. Of course, your dealer would come out and install them on a service call for you. They'd be more than happy to do that, but they are simple enough. We designed them in such a way as to make it easy for you to install yourself at home if you would like to.
Wow, that's pretty affordable, depending on which switches were already on your machine. Now, a lot of people recognize these because there's a ton of machines that use these 2 switches, but there's a lot of machines where the switches are $10 to $20 anyway, depending on which switch is in your machine. These little guys, they weren't very expensive. They're less than $5 a piece, I think. But you get what you pay for sometimes. So.
And like you mentioned earlier, you do have an installation video. And that installation video, if you have some switches on your machine that are not these red and black ones, if they're the red and black ones, these new switches will definitely replace them. If you have an older plus or minus machine that has other kinds of switches on it, some of those can be replaced, some of those can't, but there's more information about that, in that installation video.
Yeah, I'm putting a bunch of pictures of all the different handle switches and all the different cases, so that no matter what kind of machine you have, you'll be crystal clear on whether these will be just a drop-in replacement, or whether you need a kit installed and then they would be a replacement, or whether there's no hope and you get to stay with the old switches. So just depends on which machine you have. But if you have these 2 switches, guaranteed this is a drop-in replacement. So yeah, I'm really excited about these. I did not realize how much fatigue and pain comes to people just from all the times you press these buttons. And a lot of Statler users use the keypad in order to kind of be able to use a different hand position and stuff. But regardless of whether it's a Statler or a hand-guided machine, I mean, think about how many times you click the button because you pull up your bobbin thread, or you're going to do 3, 4, 5 single stitches and then pull up the bobbin thread and cut it. Or you're kind of doing basting, but you didn't want to bother to go into the baste mode, and so you're using your single stitch button. Or you're doing ruler work and you start it, you go along the ruler and you stop it because you want that needle to hit that point. And you know, anything you do over and over again, your hands and your entire body kind of takes a beating. The older I get, the more I appreciate that. Any comments or questions?
Haven't seen any.
Otherwise, I'm gonna have to start singing, and nobody wants that to happen.
Well, I think that's all we had to show them today. Of course, if you've got other questions, feel free, to reach out to us on Facebook, or, email, or call your dealer. Your dealer can answer questions for you on these switches as well. But
We'll watch the comments more closely for the next hour or two, just to make sure that everybody gets their question answered in a timely way.
thanks for joining us today.
Have a nice weekend. Now, if only I had a button to, click. Stop the video.